No, I choose people who don't want to be written about, on the whole, whose lives are shrouded in mystery, and they want to hide their secrets. And I just love the king has been far too lenient with him. And that it's not just now this sex case.
The internet had...
Tom Bower has always been an unsettling presence in the world of the powerful. Not loud, not theatrical, not erratic, but razor-sharp, unflinching, and alarmingly precise. He is the kind of man who writes with a scalpel, not a pen. The kind of biographer who makes institutions nervous simply by clearing his throat. For decades, British public life has learnt a simple truth. When Bower starts speaking, someone's carefully manicured image is about to bleed. So when he reappeared this week, almost casually, there was a collective tightening across the royal sphere. Advisors who had dealt with him before recognised the shift immediately. Journalists who study his patterns sensed the disturbance before a single quote had gone out. Even the public, fatigued as they are by the unending churn of royal drama, paused long enough to wonder why he had chosen now to step back into the spotlight.
So the first truth is that the conversation, I'm told and I believe, was very early on in their relationship when Harry is bowled over.
Fittingly, his entrance was subtle. No flashy headline, no dramatic setup, just a clipped preview from an upcoming interview, broadcast with minimal fanfare. Bower sat in his usual posture, slightly leaned back, fingers pressed together, expression unreadable, but undeniably calculating. It was the posture of a man who had already weighed every word, every implication, every possible ripple. And then came the sentence, quiet, unrushed, delivered with the ease of someone dropping a stone into a lake, fully aware a tidal wave would follow.
Yes, it is a bad look, especially for Prince Andrew, because he has always denied having any sort of sexual contact with Epstein's girl.
He hinted, with the gentlest inflection, that people would be stunned if they knew how deeply certain royal lives had intersected, and who had benefited from those intersections. That was all. No names, no elaboration, nothing explicit. But the atmosphere shifted instantly. The clip was barely half a minute long, yet it sliced through the digital world like a siren. Within seconds, journalists clipped it. Within minutes, viewers dissected it. Within 1 hour, it was everywhere, lighting up timelines, triggering emergency live streams, and sending royal commentators into overdrive. 2 names began trending almost immediately. 2 names the public had rarely seen, thrown into the same sentence, but now were being forced together with the force of narrative gravity. Meghan Markle, Prince Andrew.
I was shocked at just how thin-skinned Harry is. You know, Meghan I almost understood. She's a Hollywood B-list to be charitable actress. She was a social climber. Her whole thing is about image, so I can see why she's so easy to upset.
2 figures occupying entirely different corners of the royal universe. 2 public stories with almost no overlap. 2 reputations carrying very different types of damage. And yet, Bower's sentence had tied them together in a way no one saw coming. People wanted answers. People wanted the connection. People wanted the reason. What exactly was Bower implying? Why tease a connection this vague, this ominous, this dangerous, and then walk away without clarifying? And why choose this particular moment, when Meghan was navigating another wave of public skepticism, and Andrew's reputation still sat on a fault line? Even the palace, normally steeled against online hysteria, reportedly slipped into immediate alert. Staffers stayed late. Communications officers tightened internal guidance. The mood, according to whispers, turned sharp and hushed, as if the institution sensed that something volatile had been set loose. Because Bower does not provoke by accident. He does not speak without intent. And this time, his silence after the tease was even louder than the tease itself.
Commentators dissected the sentence word by word. Who was the same hand? What events at a bombshell involving both?
I do, and I think it has divided the nation and made us all, many of us, very unhappy on either side of the argument. I just found that Harry and Meghan, having said that they were setting up in California to spread wellness and love and sincerity, have done the exact opposite. They have.
The strange thing about the clip was how ordinary it looked on the surface. 30 seconds, no dramatic music, no aggressive language, just Tom Bower, calm and steady, making an observation that felt almost offhand, unless you understood how he operates. He has mastered the art of detonating a bomb with a whisper. The moment the snippet hit social media, the reaction was instantaneous. TikTok's algorithm grabbed it like a live wire. X, formerly Twitter, erupted with threads faster than anyone could read them. News accounts reposted, paused, zoomed in, analysed Bower's posture, his inflection, the barely perceptible pause before he uttered the word benefited. It became a subject of forensic attention. Within 10 minutes, creators were recording reaction videos. Within 15, the thumbnail edits began rolling in. Within 30, commentators from the US, Australia, and Europe were all weighing in, each convinced they'd cracked the meaning behind Bauer's tease. And in the middle of all that chaos, two names kept rising to the top of every thread, every theory, every frantic analysis: Meghan and Andrew. Their names became magnets, pulled into the centre of a narrative storm no one could justify, but everyone was suddenly invested in. Major newsrooms scrambled. Editors reportedly instructed staff to draft holding articles until more context emerged. Producers went back through archives, searching for any rare moment in which Meghan and Andrew appeared in overlapping proximity. Even late-night comedians overseas squeezed in jokes about the royal algorithm breaking itself. But behind the spectacle, a deeper tension stirred. People who work inside palace systems recognised the tremor immediately. The tremor that comes when speculation grows faster than the institution can manage. According to whispers, the phones inside royal communications offices lit up. Schedulers reviewed upcoming engagements. Advisors attempted, unsuccessfully, to calculate how long the frenzy might last. Because the one thing everyone in that world knows is this: Bauer never tees up a storyline unless he has something more in his pocket. And that realisation, more than the public speculation, more than the online theories, more than the memes and viral clips, is what caused the first genuine ripple of panic behind palace walls. Stay tuned and do subscribe, because the bit Meghan wanted buried comes right after this. If the first 30-second clip was the match, what happened next was the explosion. Because once Bauer's vague insinuation hit the bloodstream of social media, people didn't merely react. They constructed entire universes out of ambiguity. At first, it began predictably. A few speculative posts, some half-serious jokes, light-hearted guesses. But as the clip spread, the tone shifted into something far more feverish. Royal watchers, the ones accustomed to poring over body language, micro-expressions, historical footnotes, began stitching together elaborate theories with the speed of a breaking news newsroom.
A series dedicated to dissecting the most riveting royal scandals in history. This week, I'm joined by Tom Bauer, author of Revenge, Meghan, Harry, and the War Between the Windsors, the defining book on Meghan.
Thousands of comments long appeared within minutes. Creators with millions of followers posted frame-by-frame dissections of Bauer's expression. Algorithm-driven feeds turned the story into an obsession, feeding viewers a never-ending chain of reactions, guesses, conspiracies, and confident but baseless explanations. Some insisted Bauer was hinting at a private rivalry buried beneath years of royal diplomacy. Others argued it had something to do with internal power struggles, the sort that rarely reach the public but shape everything behind the scenes. A separate camp swore it must be tied to money, positioning, or some forgotten moment of royal politics that had been quietly swept aside. And then came the theory that would soon dominate the chaos. The theory that took on a life so large that even reputable analysts couldn't ignore it. People began to suggest that Bauer was alluding to something deeper, something hidden, something deliberately obscured by palace silence and time. This was not a gentle theory. It was incendiary. Posts began circulating, claiming Bauer was hinting at a buried chapter, a moment of behind-the-scenes royal turbulence involving both Meghan and Andrew. A chapter the palace supposedly hoped would never surface. A chapter that the institution, some claimed, had allegedly padded beneath layers of silence, protocol, and tightly controlled media statements. Of course, there was no proof. Absolutely none. But online momentum doesn't wait for evidence. It thrives on possibility. And Bauer had given the internet just enough of a possibility to build a mountain out of a single pebble. Comment sections mutated into battlegrounds. One group insisted Meghan was the target. Another believed Andrew was the real subject. Yet another argued that Bauer was exposing fractures within the monarchy itself, fractures that ran deeper than the public realised. Then came the amateur investigators, people cross-referencing timelines, viewers comparing old interviews, editors resurfacing grainy photos and decade-old quotes, magnifying them into clues. Suddenly, innocuous events, charity appearances, overlapping dates, unrelated press cycles were all presented as evidence. But while the public spiralled into full investigative mode, those inside the royal machinery sensed the danger faster than anyone else. Those who truly understand how the monarchy operates, the staffers, advisors, and palace aides who live through every crisis, recognised the shift in tone immediately. According to whispered accounts, some offices went on quiet alert. Communications teams began scanning online reactions. Internal discussions turned tense, clipped, cautious. They were not alarmed by the public's creativity. They were alarmed by its speed, because once a narrative this unrestrained takes hold, containing it becomes nearly impossible. And all of this, every speculative thread, every panicked theory, every breathless live stream, had been triggered by Bauer's one carefully chosen sentence. The storm had begun building, and the palace, knowingly or not, was already caught in the outer winds. 2 hours after the first clip, Bauer struck again. No hesitation, no warning. This time he released a longer excerpt during another broadcast, and in that excerpt sat one chilling sentence. It is surprising how events assumed to be unrelated were, in fact, shaped by the same influence. That line hit like a shockwave. Commentators froze mid-tweet. News presenters stiffened. Podcasters immediately fired up emergency live streams. The internet didn't ignite. It exploded. People began combing through royal history with frantic energy, dragging up timelines, crossing over events, stitching together connections that might not have existed at all. Yet the hunger for answers outweighed any concern for accuracy. One camp insisted Bauer was referencing Meghan. Another swore it had to involve Andrew. Others argued that the entire royal machine was implicated. But no matter the interpretation, one feeling dominated the discourse. Something was coming. Stay with me, and do subscribe, because Meghan's team really didn't enjoy the next part. As online chatter intensified, Montecito reportedly descended into turmoil. Meghan, according to insiders, was pacing, calling advisors, demanding clarity on how Bauer had accessed certain details she believed were safely sealed behind confidentiality agreements. Her team reportedly reached out to contacts across the industry, each more cautious than the last. Lawyers hovered on standby. PR strategists began drafting contingency plans, unsure of whether this would turn into a major reputational storm or simply a fleeting online spectacle. One insider claimed Meghan felt targeted. Another suggested she believed Bauer was using her name as a springboard for publicity. Regardless of the truth, the mood inside her camp was unmistakably tense, the type of tension that comes from watching a story spin beyond one's control. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, another figure had gone eerily quiet. While Meghan's team was reportedly scrambling, Prince Andrew's circle appeared to do the opposite. Sources whispered that Royal Lodge had slipped into stillness. No reactions, no statements, no murmurs of defence. And in the royal world, silence often speaks louder than any rebuttal. Advisors understood that even the slightest acknowledgement could fuel speculation 10 times over. They had seen this play out before. They recognised the dangers, but that silence only added oxygen to the digital inferno. Reporters began digging through archives, identifying old overlaps between Andrew's public engagements and Meghan's early years in royal life. Commentators attempted to map connections that had no factual basis, but nonetheless made for sensational broadcasting. A whistleblower from inside a production studio then escalated the chaos, hinting that Bauer's upcoming material would shock both sides of the Atlantic. True or not, it didn't matter. The narrative had momentum now, unstoppable momentum. As speculation spiraled, Buckingham Palace reportedly reverted to its oldest survival mechanism: quiet, deliberate containment. No comments, no confirmations, no denials. Behind closed doors, however, sources say the atmosphere shifted sharply. Meetings intensified. Communication teams reviewed upcoming appearances, statements, and engagements. Senior advisors examined worst-case scenarios, calculating how to navigate the overlap of two reputational storms rising simultaneously. In the palace, perception is currency, and perception was beginning to tilt in dangerous directions. Even though Bauer hadn't accused anyone of wrongdoing, the public reaction had morphed into something much larger than his original remarks. Commentary had become narrative. Narrative had become collective belief, and once that happens, the institution knows it has a fight on its hands. Stick around, and hit subscribe. Meghan's advisors would prefer you didn't. While the palace assessed internal damage, the media ecosystem erupted into overdrive. Editors dusted off old interviews. Podcasters linked moments from Meghan's Oprah appearance with historical notes from Andrew's controversies. YouTube channels posted hour-long breakdowns, stitching together evidence that had never been evidence at all. Across TikTok, creators dissected Bauer's phrasing, his tone, his pauses. Was he implying a hidden conflict, a shared influence, a concealed royal power play? Clips resurfaced. Old remarks took on new meaning. Small comments became magnified into explosive talking points. The line between fact and speculation dissolved completely, and the world devoured every second. Meanwhile, both camps watched helplessly as the narrative expanded beyond anything they could control. Just when everyone thought the situation had reached its peak, Tom Bauer appeared once more. No theatrics, no raised voice, just his usual composed clinical delivery. "This," he said, "is the chapter the palace hoped I would never publish." The reaction was instant. Anchors interrupted broadcasts, news alerts lit up screens, comment sections detonated. In that single moment, the question was no longer whether Meghan and Andrew would be dragged into the same public storm. It was, how severe would it be? How long would it last? And which of them would face the harsher fallout? The royal machine, Meghan's camp, Andrew's household, all understood the same unsettling truth. Tom Bower rarely exaggerates. He rarely hints without purpose. And once he commits something to the public arena, it tends to linger there for a very, very long time. As the dust continues to swirl, no one seems able to contain the narrative Bower unleashed. Not the palace, not Meghan's team, not Andrew's advisors. The storm has taken on its own trajectory, fed by public curiosity, media appetite, and the irresistible draw of royal controversy. And somewhere between California's calm hills and Windsor's guarded corridors, two figures remain at the centre of the speculation. Tethered by a storyline neither of them asked for, yet both now must navigate. Because once Tom Bower opens a chapter, it rarely closes quietly. And this time, it feels less like a chapter, and more like the beginning of a reckoning.